All right, it is Wednesday, August 17th. Closing out the summer here on TJRS. Kids are going back to school. Frederick County started today. Next week it really gets cranking. Training camps and heating up, and we'll see if the big guy's heating up. Here's Riggo.
Well, actually, I'm not, Todd, because the weather's been very pleasant for the last, 4, 5, 6 days,
Oh, my gosh, isn't it awesome?
And it seems weird in a way, coming over here, it finally kind of struck me as it almost feels like autumn, doesn't it? Just because of the weather.
It does.
I mean, it was actually, last night, I was outside, and it was actually, I'm thinking, maybe based on, because it's been so warm, it's probably 65 degrees, but it felt cool. It felt,
I know, right?
Felt chilly.
Well, and there's no humidity.
Well, that's the other part of it. That's really does make the thing happen.
Isn't it pleasant? Apparently, is this what like San Diego feels like? I've never been to San Diego.
That's what it would be.
Wow.
I would guess 70. What are they? They're pretty much somewhere between 70. 80 would be a hot day in San Diego.
Wow.
With very little humidity. When you say very little, I'd say about 30% humidity, because I think if you get down below around 10 and stuff like that, like Arizona, although they send people out there for their respiratory stuff, right? For breathing.
The dryness.
Maybe the dryness is good. All right, Todd. I just got back from the post office where I mailed my soil sample. Remember the worms and the whole deal?
Yes.
I mean, this project, and it's what I got going on. It's just like, it's killing me, actually, in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of physicality to this stuff. But yesterday, a couple days ago, I ordered a soil probe, which, it's about this long, and it looks like a T. And you've seen them. You stick it down the ground, you twist it and pull it out. God damn, I thought it was going to kill me yesterday.
You're popping out a core sample, right?
Exactly. And so I took about, I don't know, it must have been, I bet a good 20 samples from the front yard and probably about 12 or 13 in the backyard, because they're two different places. One, I've got to plant grass, and the other one, I've got to maintain the grass. So I finally figured to get, I would go and get scientific. Now, I did it years ago, but the truth of the matter is, I believe you should probably do a soil test at least every 3 years. But probably, based on it's $9 for a soil test, I mean, you can't really, if you're doing your own yard, you can't really go wrong by doing a soil test.
Okay.
So anyway, I got it in. Probably won't hear anything for a couple of weeks, but then that will determine exactly what kind of treatment, you do for the front yard and the back, because I'm moving into more of an organic place as opposed to the chemicals and the fertilizers that people's been using for years.
You're going green, Riggo?
I'm going green. I'm trying to go green. Let me put it that way. I'm sure a lot of the golf courses still probably use, I don't know.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, because with the advances in the scientific community and how big this is for farms and any place that's got major earth involved, that it's to their benefit across the board is what they're finding out.
In other words, to go green.
100%.
Yeah. Well, then I guess I'm part of the wave, and sometimes you go. Of course, all this information wasn't available, at least that I was unaware of it. I'm sure maybe 10 years ago, if you really wanted to push it, you could find out about it. It's a perfect example of a guy who years ago, he was a little bit out there. But when I used to go to Carlisle and training camp, this guy would come around and he'd say, "Hey, I got something here I want you to show you." He says, "I think that this could really be big." But like I said, he was a little fruity, you know what I'm saying? He'd had some
issues. Out there?
He had some issues, and he'd done some stuff in his background that involved the police, which, you kind of go. But this guy was into wind power back in the 70s, late 70s. He was talking about building turbines in the 70s. And I got to thinking to myself, there are people like him that are so far ahead of the curve that you actually get lost. That you just, somebody else, because nobody wants to hear it, and you get discouraged and you just let it go. Because, and you think in the late 60s or the late 70s, when all the oil and all this stuff was going on, and the petroleum, you wouldn't have had a prayer trying to get this through Congress, because the lobby would have just drummed you out.
Well, shit. Remember, we're waiting in line. Even license plate, odd license plate. I'm old enough to remember when oil embargo in the 70s, right?
Oh, right.
When
late 70s.
Right?
That's
I
right.
mean, for you punks out there that are watching this podcast.
And the lines.
Oh, my God. The lines could be a mile long to get gas, believe it or not.
Right, good hour to get.
Based on your license plate, you can only get gas at certain days and certain times.
Right. Yeah, which I think they did that. That was the same thing they did during World War II. I believe there was gas rationing.
Sure.
But anyway, the point is that the stuff now, the new things that are available to the agricultural world, or the what do you call the people that grow stuff anyway, the nurseries and all that stuff. I think probably there is a lot more stuff going this way. Although fertilizer is still a big thing out in the Midwest. I don't know of too many farmers that they're switching, but it isn't anything where they run wholesale to do that. But so anyway, I'm waiting to get my soil samples back, and then we'll go from there.
They come back and it's like a 23andMe for grass and for your yard, and they're going to.
I get what's a 23andMe?
Well, that's the hey, you find out about your DNA. And
23 chromosomes. Right?
You send it off, and they find out. Oh, wow, yeah, you actually.
I ain't going that far.
You were
Todd.
descendant of John Wilkes Booth or something.
My wife keeps insisting. She keeps, and I told her, I said, that could be the grounds. That could be the grounds if you snip off a little bit of my hair while I'm slumbering one night, and all of a sudden you get a DNA profile on me. I go, that ain't right.
You're like, wait a second. I'm Czech royalty. I already know this. We're good.
Well, it ain't so much that. It's more like. They're going to match my DNA. Like the guy out. Now, I ain't killed anybody. Let me get on the record. But there is a guy out in California that got reeled in that way. The somebody murderer.
He was a big-time murderer, too.
Oh, yeah.
He was not
a former police officer.
Yes. Yeah, going back in the 60s.
And this is how they caught him.
100%. John, they are solving more crimes because people's,
Hey, I'm going to find out if I actually really am a royal member of the family. No, but the sheriff's looking for you.
But yeah, but you got the other relatives dropping a dime on you now. Like, oh.
Yeah. So that won't be happening. Oh, and now I've got something, and I would like you to pull something up on your computer. Can you
I shall do that.
I want you to pull up something called the Schofield scale.
Oh, that's for chilies and the hotness.
There you go. Capsicum. Anyway, I had a friend of mine, and you spotted the foil on my...
I was inquiring and intrigued by the tin foil and making sure you're all right.
Now, I'm not going to be able to identify anything here, but if you pull that up, you have it on there. There are these little babies, and the reason...
The concentration of
Capsicum.
Yes, that.
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly if these are all the same. They wouldn't look because they're different colors.
Holy
I thought right away.
Shite.
But here's what's interesting about these little babies, Todd. This one's called a chocolate, but I don't know, and it's not Mr. Chocolate, but you may want to call him Mr. Chocolate once you bite into it, because he's got a pretty good bite, too, just like the original Mr. Chocolate of little Timmy Treadwell fame. Anyway, the reason, because the guy said he dropped him off this morning, unknowns to anybody, and then he sent my wife a text last night and was talking, because I think he watched the podcast, and we remember that one time a while back we were talking about peppers, I don't know, it was probably a year or so ago,
yes.
Whatever. So we dropped this off. Now, I think this may be a chocolate Carolina Reaper.
Okay, because I'm looking over here.
Now, see, if you would have asked me, the boot Wallachia pepper, once upon a time, this probably you have to go back about 8 or 9 years, and I'm not sure if there's one of those in this group, but something makes me think that this may be the ghost pepper, that it was the hottest at the time, known pepper at the time. Now, there's a breeder in North Carolina, that's probably where the Carolina Reaper comes from. I don't know, you may see his name in there, I can't recall, I should have written it down. But he's now developed a new pepper. So it was the Butte Holaka, the ghost pepper was what it was called. It was like 1.5 million units on the Scoville scale. Then came along the Carolina Reaper.
Carolina Reaper and Dragon's Breath.
Oh, well, the Dragon's Breath is new because the Carolina Panther, Carolina Reaper, that was would have been surpassed by, I believe, the Dragon's Breath. With this, the reason why you pull that up. The names alone are
amazing.
Yeah, just stay away from it. It's got poison written all over.
Yeah, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. So then there's another one. Do you see Pepper X?
Yes.
Okay. Now Pepper X. Now it's not. Guinness hasn't recognized it yet, but I believe in the old days the Carolina Reaper was 2 million Scoville units. Pepper X is 3 million Scoville units. 3 million. It's like another 100%. And then I believe with Pepper X, it's got law enforcement pepper spray.
It does. Most law enforcement grade pepper spray.
What's that tell you? This is for bad
Don't put
dudes.
it in your eyes, boys and girls.
This is for bad dudes. And that's why I'm handling, because the guy, when he left, he texted my wife this morning after he dropped him off, and said his hands were still burning. So I took the message. I thought, well, I could bring rubber gloves, but I think I'll just bring.
So are you going from left to right in intensity, or the other way around?
I don't really. These were they weren't marked. In other words, they weren't named. But I remember him talking about the chocolate Reaper, and I don't know if any of those other ones are in here.
The red.
This could very well be a Scotch bonnet for all.
Yeah, the red and the
habanero.
orange are the ghost pepper. The red and the orange. That looks exactly like that there.
Okay, so
And
they'd
the
be
yellow-
Ghost, and that would be then this would be Reaper.
Yeah.
And this one may be, like I said, a habanero or a Scotch bonnet or something like that.
That's what it looks like. Courtesy
Hard to
of
say. I
the
mean-
American pharmacist William Scoville, 1912.
That's when he came up with the
He was a
scale.
pharmacist.
It's kind of interesting. You start reading about that. When I say interesting, and you know what? It's pretty much a subjective test. It's not. It's not what do you call with what do you call it? Chemicals or any of that. Well, it is a little bit because they dilute all this stuff, and it's basically until a taster can no longer taste the heat of the pepper. Yeah, that's my point, because they say everybody is different, genetically speaking, as to how many hot pepper sensors you have on your tongue. Now, obviously, if you're a taster, you have a lot of them. You're going to go, wow, that stuff's really hot. Or then if you don't have very many, this is a punk. And I was telling Lisa Marie last night what I thought at the time before I looked this stuff up. I thought he sent a Carolina Reaper. I've never actually seen one of those, or was going to. Then as I read about it, then I realized that there was the Dragon's Breath, which I think is 2.5 million Scoville units.
Yeah.
And then you get up to Pepper X.
You're
and
getting into some bad.
This guy is, I think, what's his name? It doesn't show you anything there, does it?
Just shows you Scoville.
Yeah, see if you pull up, what do you call it, the Carolina Reaper. It'll tell you who developed it, because he's also the same gentleman that has developed.
Ed Curry.
Ed Curry in Carolina, right? North Carolina?
Yep.
So Ed Curry, I believe, is the creator of the new world record, which is Pepper X. It's like one of these deals. It may be wind dated, so it's not official yet.
Now, he got it declared by Guinness in 2017.
Yeah,
surpassing.
but that was for the Carolina Reaper.
Yes,
Yeah.
declared the hottest chili pepper, surpassing the Trinidad Scorpion Butch T.
That's what I'm saying. The names are priceless. Oh, it's great. I love it. Anyway. Well, kids, that's pretty much all I got today, Todd.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. So, are you going to use those?
Well, that's a good question. I feel bad. I mean, yeah, I'll take them home, but I got to be honest with you. First of all, I took a nip off of pepper the other day, and it wasn't even really a hot pepper. I think, who knows, it might have been a habanero, for crying out loud. And a habanero can light you up. The seeds are really, the capsicum, I believe, is really concentrated.
Yeah.
But still, the skin, the flesh of these things, don't kid yourself, that's pretty hot too. I once watched it. This used to be a big deal on YouTube, where people would eat one of these peppers.
There's still a show out there.
Basically like Jackass, right?
Yeah, and I'm telling you, have you ever been overcome by this?
Well, I was going to say, I think you could.
I love it hot, believe it or not. I love this stuff. But I've had it before where, yeah.
Well, it's almost like you're having a heart attack.
Yes.
I mean, your chest is like just
sweat
like
pouring off of you.
Right.
And is it milk is the neutralizer?
I think I've heard milk, yeah. And also sugar. I always heard that sugar was something because that's what they dilute the peppers in to keep diluting it until they finally get to where they can't taste. And I guess it's how many dilution processes they go through. I don't really know, so I shouldn't be talking about it, but it has something to do with that.
There's a show, I believe it's Hot Wings and Beer.
Yeah.
That's the one.
And that is it. The final dab, the last dab.
And they keep going up, and you see the guests like, where's the milk?
Do they drink beer while they're doing this?
They do. It's Hot Wings and
Beer.
Beer.
Weird. That's kind of a misnomer too. You ever, water? I need water, and you drink the water, and you go, I don't know what I need with the water.
Right. I don't know.
I need a fire extinguisher.
I need a doctor.
Hit foam. Just foam my face. Anyhow. All right. That's it. Show and tell.
All right, John. I have always been intrigued by this event that is basically here in our backyard, right? You can drive to Ocean City, be there in 3 hours. You can drive to Virginia Beach, 3.5, or whatever. You go up and down the coast. the White Marlin Open.
It's a singular tournament. It's not a combination of where.
It is not. So what is amazing to me in doing my research on this, because you see the incredible prize money, and you get some big time people, some very wealthy people that's why they say this tournament is so great. This is from the tournament director Jim Motzko. Anyone can win at the White Marlin Open because it's weighing the biggest marlin wins the big money. So it's unlike a release tournament with the team with the most skill, might have the best equipment, makes the most investment, has the competition. You've had winners that are total amateurs several times that have won. Michael Jordan fishes in this every year with the team.
What's the prize? What's the purse? Do you know? Does it say?
$8.6 million.
To the winner?
To the winner. You know how much this team got?
Is there a second place?
You know how much this team got, John?
I do not.
This team captured, it was $4.5 million. That fish. And they brought him in at the end for the second year in a row. The last white marlin weighed. So last year in 2020.
The last one.
The last one. Right? Kind of get your attention. So in 2021, a boat called Sushi out of Ocean City took the white marlin at the last minute. It was a world record payout at the time of $3.2 million in catching that fish. So then another Big Rock tournament out of Morehead City, North Carolina, 10 months later, they reeled in a 576-pound blue marlin. They won 3.4.
I was going to say that's a blue, though, when you get into these white marlin don't get that big. I think it's either the striped or the white, but I think the white is, of all the marlins, you got the blue, the black, the striped, and the white.
And I want to ask you some more about that.
The smallest,
because,
but I'm not sure.
So this year, same deal, White Marlin Open, and they have different categories. And they were saying how bad the bill fishing was this year. So in 2016, 1,445 billfish were caught in the event. 2019 saw 1,504. There's this year a total of just 155. They were saying how bad it was. Were caught 151 released. 58 of the 59 blue marlin were released. No marlin was weighed until Thursday.
58 out of 59 blue marlin were released?
Yep.
And this is the same tournament, right?
Yeah,
so they have White Marlin Open, but there's different categories?
Different categories,
okay.
100%.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So usually there's thousands that are released. This year, only 155 marlin were caught.
Wow,
so,
that's interesting.
And this family's been fishing in this, I believe it's the Duffy family. Yeah, Jeremy Duffy. I think they're out of Bethesda. I think they're local here. And they've been fishing in this, I believe, since 1996.
Is that right?
And they won it once or twice before. Now they had a huge drought, and they were the last ones to bring it in. And
do they just live off their winnings or whatever?
Apparently, they're huge in the boating community, and this is a passion / livelihood. If you know.
Yeah, I was going to say they're. I mean, they may be amateurs, but I don't think they're amateurs. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fishermen. Yeah. There's some guys out there that don't make a living doing it, but they're pretty sharp. They know, they know how to raise fish. And there's a lot to it, like the hull of the boat, which I never knew. That certain hulls of certain boats, sport fishers are supposedly raise billfish. That's what they're all about. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that means, other than I guess the billfish is curious from the humming of the vibrations in the water, and it comes up to see it. I don't know how that works. And I was just in Cabo. We never did see any striped marlin. We saw, like I told you about 3 weeks ago, we caught some tuna, and they weren't very, very big tuna. But there's that's interesting. That's what Cabo is known for, is the striped marlin fishing, and that is really, like, I don't know enough about, in other words, the numbers of fish that are caught, because it's Mexico, and I don't think they keep that close of records, or people don't necessarily report it, because the captains take you out and you come back, and you can either release the fish or bring it in, the marlin. But I mean, you go out there, and it just seems to me like if you're looking for them, you'll find them. Now, we weren't looking for them, because once you've reeled in one striped marlin, at least for me. Now, I take this all back. If I could get one on a fly rod, that would be a different story. But I've caught them before where you're trolling and you hook the fish. You don't even hook the fish. They just hand you the rod and you reel it in. And I got to tell you, that's fishing. It's like, it reminds me of when I was a little kid. Like, here's one here, reeling in. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Or like you do your own kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but so it's like, and then the other thing about when you fish, and trolling is basically the way they catch all these fish. Then a lot of times it really depends on the captain. It depends on how big the fish is, because if it's not that big a fish and there are other fishermen, they'll just keep the boat moving, hopefully to get more fish. Well, now you're trying to reel in, maybe like those tuna out in Mexico. Well, some of those tuna didn't weigh 10 pounds. I might have been talking about it, but that boat keeps moving, and so you're dragging that tuna with the water, and you got heavy rigs and all that stuff, and it's kind of like, this is fun. Yeah, this is fun. Yeah, this is fun. I mean, it's like there's a lot of work's what it is. And if you got I don't know what you'd do, because my cousin, he caught about 4 years ago. He caught a 213-pound yellowfin out there. And it was like...
Were you with him?
No, I was not. I'm kind of glad that I wasn't, because they would have expected me to grab hold. It went through him, the captain, and the mate finally brought the fish on board after 4 hours. 4 hours.
Wow.
I can't... It's just like 4 hours. I remember I had a couple, 3 years ago, I had a striped marlin that was foul hooked, or it got wrapped in a line. And every time the boat would turn or whatever, this fish would turn broadside. So all of a sudden, I can't believe it, he's making another run. He must have did like that 15 times until we figured out, the fish is fouled up in the line. So it's basically you're just dragging like a drag chute with you. You know what I'm saying? Like they throw them out for anchors to slow the drift down. Trying to reel that thing in, and I'm thinking to myself, and then when I saw what it was, I was like, Jesus, this is like fire drill of some kind. I won't mention what kind. It's a fire drill, okay. I'll let it go at that, just a fire drill.
Well, this is fascinating to read. So their first 2 fishing days, they were in the hunt. They knew they had been doing pretty well.
So they had fish. They had a fish up.
And so they were in the run for the top boat, because there's multiple categories, right? But that's the big prize. But they're
the white marlin itself, that's the big prize. In other words, you catch a blue marlin.
Right.
That's a lesser prize.
So they hit it in a couple of different categories. They said they had been pre-fishing for the tournament. They discovered tuna and bait east of the Baltimore Canyon.
Which is probably about 60 miles out.
They said the lack of life inshore pushed us into the deep. On the last day, the crew, they released a white marlin early to increase their standing as the top team. Just after 11 o'clock, they spotted a marlin free jumping ahead of the boat. Free jumping ahead of the boat.
Is this marlin here?
Yeah, and he said it's not often we can actually hook a free jumper. So Captain John Duffy turned the boat, marked the fish on his sonar. When we tournament fish, I hold the left long rigger, whatever the hell that means. I held the left long. He said the marlin appeared behind their bait.
Oh, okay. I think that to say long rigger, it might be the same thing as an outrigger, which is it almost looks like a fishing rod itself, but it swings out. It swings out to the side of the boat.
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
So then you snap your line to it, and they run it out there like on a clothesline, and it goes all the way out. And you can put them all along that outrigger. So you can have like 10, 15 rods in the water.
I get it.
So it's almost like you got a school of bait fish coming.
Right.
through.
He says he didn't panic. Instead, they enticed the billfish to bite, dropped back the bait, and hooked the marlin. And that's when they realized that they had.
So they dropped the bait back to the marlin.
Yeah.
It's funny, in Mexico, what they'll do a lot of times, they'll be cruising along, and they'll see these marlin, I guess, sleeping on top of the water, striped marlin. So they get up close to them, they don't want to spook them, and then they'll take a live, sardine or whatever they happen to have, and throw that bait out there in front of that marlin. That's the way they get a lot of hookups. Occasionally, I've seen that happen more than once, and I'm trying to think, but then trolling is the other way as well.
Okay.
So
that's fascinating. I'd love to see that sometime. And apparently it's a tremendous party atmosphere. And it's a big deal when you got that kind of prize money going on.
Well, where the real action is the night before, was what they call a Calcutta, like in a golf tournament.
Okay, yeah, when they bet, you're placing your bet on the boats and the cruise.
The boat that's going to win it. Yeah, that Calcutta can be worth a lot of money.
Michael Jordan's into it. He's there all the time. He's hanging with doing his thing.
He just into the Calcutta.
Exactly.
He never leaves land.
He loves gambling. This is what it's all about. He's like, well, hell.
I wonder if I don't know. He's from North Carolina. Hell, he could bury, right? Isn't that where he grew up, in that state?
Laney, North Carolina.
Where's that?
Where he went to Laney High School, just Wilmington.
Okay.
He's right there.
Well, That's almost on what I think it's what is it, Cape Fear?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes,
Isn't that
100%.
what goes up through there?
That's right.
So he's right there at the he's right on the
He's a
Atlantic
country boy.
Ocean. Yeah, he is.
He's a country boy.
Good for him. All right, Michael. All right, Toddy. Now I got to get going here in just a little bit, but you said we have something else left. So what do
Well,
you got for
I'm seeing all these record contracts that are being signed throughout the NFL, and with the way the game has changed and the progression is such that I believe it's the San Diego Chargers safety just signed a
What's the
record.
Los Angeles Chargers?
Yes, correct. Old habits are hard to break.
I mean, I actually was starting to think.
Wow.
Do they still go by San Diego Chargers?
You're right, but the guy, I believe he just signed right prior to us taping this podcast here, a record contract for the most money for a history of a safety. It's an extraordinary amount of money that is guaranteed. Meanwhile, running backs are going the way of the dodo bird. It's stunning, and it's stunning from what you represent, the halcyon days. And so with that, I'd like for you to look at this particular screenshot here that I've taken, because just a handful of years ago, that's Leveon Bell on the left and Adrian Peterson on the right, and they are now boxing, and they're boxing each other.
Right.
No more talk, Riggo. No more talk. Battle of the running backs. It's hard times for the running backs, man.
I finished runner-up in the heavyweight division of the Golden Gloves. 1969, I think it was, over in Kansas City. I saw this and was kind of fascinated by it. What kind of a purse are they talking about? I mean, what are they up to?
I've yet to find the purse, but this is fascinating because this was originally scheduled to be in July. So what's happening in the boxing, because boxing is so low on the totem pole now because boxing
MMA.
just lost there because of MMA, UFC, and there is no bullshit in those rings. All right, you can't hide.
Well, boxing, same thing.
Well,
though,
boxing got so corrupted though. Boxing, so many of the big matches, all the big money came. That's why boxing got their ass kicked. We saw this coming because all the promoters, they were just thinking about the next fight and the money, and guys, there were a lot of guys who made a shit ton of money, but
without really putting anything out there.
You got it. And then people got into, so that's why UFC and MMA took off, because there was no hiding. It was time to get down.
You know what? There you go. You just nailed something, I think. And that's really what everybody, when they watch an event, sporting, meaning that there is supposedly the contestants, it really matters to them.
Truth.
Huh? Yeah, basically that is true.
Truth.
So what you're seeing, and that's what I always thought, that's what occurred to me years ago when it was with the NFL or, take any league. It's really the intent of the players. The players own the game. That's what is such an irony about professional sports. The players are on that field own the game.
They control it.
They are the true owners of the game.
And don't think that all this gambling now.
Without their what is it? What did my old running back coach in college used to say? That you got to go with some kind reckless abandon. You've heard that term, right?
Oh, yeah.
You have to get in there with reckless abandon.
That's damn near the only sport
I get
where
the reckless part. Abandon to me means you leave. Reckless abandon. Is that an oxymoron?
Maybe once you would abandon any sense, sense of being,
is it like Army intelligence?
Any sense of well-being.
Oh yeah, that must be what it is. Reckless abandon your own personal.
You got to give it up. Now I got to believe that's probably the only sport where that term applies. Reckless abandon. That's the only sport where.
Well, basketball, right? I mean, hockey. I guess you could have a little reckless abandon out there, right?
Well, not much, because it's pretty choreographed and otherwise. But there's hitting, but not.
But once that ball is snatched, it's all reckless abandon.
So these guys, they are now. They're going to box each other. Thank God they're going to box each other because, they were going to be
Instead of?
They were going to a real boxer. Didn't you find out?
Mickey, what's his name? Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke is a tough guy too.
Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch. Ed Too Tall Jones did a little boxing years ago.
He did. And
everybody dabbled.
Hey, our own Dexter. We saw Dexter, and remember we broke down Dexter's boxing match.
That's right.
So this was originally scheduled in July. They were going to be the undercard. Because here's the other part of it. It's celebrity boxing or celebrity influencers, YouTube stars. Well, that got postponed, which means the money wasn't right. So this is rescheduled now. for Saturday, September 10th, which is the first weekend of NFL games. Neither one of them are officially retired from the league, from
so they
the
could
Shield.
get called.
Yeah.
But is this a one-off, or do these guys think that they're going to go? Actually, they're going to get into a whole new career.
Well,
is this a career move?
they think so. Now, apparently,
so they've got themselves convinced that they have.
Well,
the
Leveon Bell apparently has been boxing as a training method for a long time relative to staying in shape and cardio.
Okay, I can see that.
And Peterson, he decked a training partner yesterday that made the rounds, which is why this got my attention again, because I thought it was dead. He decked a guy, but again, these are football players transitioning into boxing, and it usually doesn't have a happy ending. So they're you know.
So who knows? In other words, if one of them knocks the other one out, and then goes, I got what it takes, then he goes on there. But Peterson is considerably older than Bell, isn't he?
He is.
Like what, maybe 5, 6,
so
7 years?
here's the tail of the tape,
Yeah,
Riggo.
that's what we always got to get.
Yeah, we got the tail of the tape.
Reach.
So you nailed it relative to the age difference in which
so Bell will carry
is
him.
30 years old. Adrian's 37.
Yeah.
They're both 6'1". Bell is 225. AP is 217. All right, that's not big. That's 8 pounds, and they're both chiseled.
What about their reach?
Let's see. They don't list their reach.
They don't have a reach? Oh, that's
no.
also
Then they go into Leveon was all pro.
What's that got to do with anything? We're talking boxing.
But Peterson was 7-time Pro Bowler. So now I got to ask you this: who's the one guy? It had to be somebody that you're like, I'm done with football. If you were going to do what these guys are doing, go, I want a piece of that guy. There's got to be one guy.
I'm trying to think who it'd be. You mean back? In other words, another football player,
a competitor or a teammate, another football player that said, "One."
I'll tell you right away who it'd be. It'd either be a kicker or a punter. And I'm not even sure I want a piece of them.
Those guys staying in shape.
They do. I mean, Mosley, gee whiz, he had thighs on him, like a hog, actually. All right, guys, I'm going to round these little babies up. I'm going to put them back in a bag, and I'm going to figure out something to do with them. But that's it for us today. Hope to see you next week. It's Riggo out of here.